my QB3, who I think a lot of people are overthinking and falling off on and way too low on, is Carson Beck. Carson Beck from Miami. QB3, this has been a guy I've kind of been banging the table for a couple months now, going back to college football. The villain, as you guys know, the villain of college football, but a noble villain nonetheless. And you need that. Like I said, the college football was better because of characters like Carson Beck, just, infiltrating multiple conferences, dominating the SEC, dominating the ACC, multiple programs, whatever. I think when you lead two different schools to the college football playoff, one to the national championship, and you do it on the highest stage, the biggest stage, brightest lights moment, I think you get more. I think you deserve all the credit in the world for that. I don't care if people tell me he was the point guard and he was just J.J. McCarthying his way out there. There are plenty of quarterbacks who would have messed it up along the way. There are plenty of quarterbacks who would not have completed those short underneath throws. There are plenty of quarterbacks who would have choked in the biggest moments with the pressure of the crowd, the biggest stage. Nobody can tell me otherwise, because I don't think – it seems like Beck doesn't get any credit for that run Miami had, the playoff run, and I think he deserves some credit. Like, I know, like, obviously you had Malachi Tony and Mark Fletcher and guys like Ruben Bain, Akeem Mesidor paving the way for him, but, like, as the quarterback and you are the head honcho, you are the leader of the locker room, I still think you deserve some credit for that, and it doesn't feel like anybody wants to give Beck that credit for some reason. So I'll do it. If you want to talk about measurables too, this guy is as big as Fernando Mendoza. So we're going to get to Mendoza here in a little. 6'5", 233 pounds. That is huge. That is massive. That is bigger than most NFL quarterbacks. We talk about looking the part, being the size of franchise QB, the stature, the presence, the overall strength. 6'5", 233 is huge. That is not much smaller than Ben Roethlisberger. Like, I think you get some points for being arguably the biggest quarterback in the class. Like, we've used that argument for every other quarterback in history, but for some reason Carson Beck doesn't get that argument. So I don't know why, but he's also only 23 years old. He's 23.3, so he's younger than a lot of quarterbacks in this class, unlike most people think. Everybody just think, oh, he's a 6-year, so he's like 28 years old. Factually incorrect. He's not. He is a month older than Ty Simpson. So for all the Ty Simpson truthers and believers out there, Carson Beck's only a month older. So not much difference there in age, even though everyone tells me he was Perry Ellis of college football and played a million seasons. So speaking of those a million seasons he played, did you know he only lost 6 games in college? 6 total games in his collegiate career. Carson Beck started 43 games in college. He went 37-6. Let me say that again. 37-6, which is one of the highest win percentages of a quarterback that we've ever seen in college football history. Oh, and on top of that, he also has the 10th highest completion percentage of all quarterbacks in college football history at 69%, which was even better this season at 72.4%, which was second highest in the country, only to Julian Sand, who's like 78%, completely like 78% of his passes, which is unheard of. So yes, Beck checks in at 72 completion rate, second overall. Adjusted completion percentage is 79%, so even better on top of that, almost 80. So you're talking about lethal from the pocket, lethal accuracy, pinpoint accuracy. That is Carson Beck to a T. I know it's a lot of underneath throws. I know the arm strength is not the same as it was. We'll get into that. The UCL injury was real. The surgery was a real factor that inhibited him. But this guy, the production was there. The wins were there. The overall commanding the offense, the changing the play, the identifying which defensive coverages, all the cerebral stuff that goes under the radar, Carson Beck has it. And I don't think enough people are talking about that with him, that the cerebral high processor that he is. Ty Simpson has that too. We'll get into him next. But I think Beck deserves some credit for that, because the production he put up over 3 full seasons as a starter, 2 at Georgia and 1 at Miami, leading them to the championship, nearly beating Indiana. Obviously, the game-sealing interception. We'll talk about that, but I just think he deserves more respect for the college career he had. I mean, I know like everybody wants to hate the guy because they think he's a douchebag off the field, but I feel like that's not stopped us from liking quarterbacks or athletes in the past. So I don't know why it stops at Carson Beck for some people, but 3,800 passing yards. This guy threw for 3,800 passing yards, which is fourth in the nation, fourth in college football this year. 3,800 passing yards. You gotta be getting it done against the best defenses. Getting it done at the highest level. No one can tell me production doesn't matter. Averaging 8.2 yards per pass. Good stuff. 8.2 yards a throw is great. 30 touchdown passes. Good stuff. 30 touchdown passes, 18 sacks, 157 passer rating. One of the highest in the country. We like to see that. 157 passer rating. Here's the part that worries people and would be my only concern. 12 interceptions. He has a knack for throwing costly interceptions at the wrong time. We saw it in the national championship game. We saw it at Georgia a few times as well. He does have some timely turnovers that are very costly and detrimental to his team. So we can't put that past him. We can't unsee some of those plays. I'm not going to pretend like they didn't happen, but I think he had some high highs in his career that we forget about, and we only remember the low lows because that's what we do as a society. It's more fun that way. So if we're looking at the advanced metrics here, PFF grade 73.6. So that's lower, not the highest PFF grade on this. Some of his grades in the 4 playoff games were pretty bad. They were a lot in the 50s. I think the A&M game might have been in the 40s, and then Ohio State was like a 71. Indiana, I think he was like a 51. Ole Miss like a 56. But I actually thought he was better on tape in those 4 games than the grades give him credit for. And the other thing, one note here, those were 4 of the best opponents in college football. Those are 4 of the best defenses in college football that he faced. So I do think you do get some benefit out there because, if he didn't play those last 4 games, if they just lost the first game to A&M, his grade probably would have been way higher, and he probably would have finished at like a 78 PFF grade. And then are we valuing him higher or are we valuing him lower because he lost the games? I would rather take the guy who won those games and kept winning and led their team to the championship. I don't care if the grades kept going down because he was struggling against better competition. I'm looking at the full body of work and the full sample size. If you put other quarterbacks, pick a quarterback on this list from below. None of them are winning those games like Beck did. None of those quarterbacks are doing the run Beck did. I don't care what they say. Not Nussmeier, not Klubnik, not Aller, not Daniels. None of those guys are winning those 3 playoff games that Carson Beck did for Miami. And I know the team was loaded. I know the roster was stacked. I know the offensive line was incredible. That's not my problem. That is you got to work with what you have, and you gotta not be the reason your team loses sometimes. So, Pro Football Network likes Beck a little higher. They like Beck a little more. They have 83.3 grade. And here's where the QBR comes in, 80.6. So talked about liking quarterbacks who have 80 and up QBRs. Beck is 3rd highest on this list of quarterbacks for QBR. So, and the wins above average is 4th at 0.518. So 4th among all these quarterbacks, 0.518 wins above average. And let's look at the combine. Combine test results, next gen stats, production score, 84. Oh, look, second in the class behind Mendoza. It's almost like he's pretty good, and you might want to draft this guy higher than people think. Athleticism score. Here's the part where he suffers a little bit. Beck's not the runner, not the athlete. I won't lie about that. 71, 12th in the class, whatever, it's fine. He's never going to be a runner, never going to be getting outside the pocket, never going to be using his legs, and that's okay. Not the style quarterback he is. 74 total score, though, which was 6th among all the quarterbacks at the class. 6th among the quarterbacks at the combine among these 15 guys, which is fine. That's fair. Again, I have him as my QB3. Let's get into some strengths on him. A couple strengths I have are this guy's elite. This guy has elite underneath accuracy from a clean pocket. So, like I said, when the pocket is clean, He's fantastic. He has an 81 grade from a clean pocket. However, when the play breaks down, this talk was going back to him not being the best athlete. Pressure grade 48.0. So if you can keep this guy upright and protected, he can pick a defense apart from the pocket. He can light up a defense if he has a clean pocket, and he can carve up a secondary. I firmly believe it. I know he's not going to be throwing 50-yard bombs anymore. Obviously, the arm strength is a little shot, not what it used to be at Georgia, but intermediate routes, slants, underneath stuff, screens, this guy doesn't miss those kind of throws. A lot of people don't put as much stock into those throws. I still think when you are the ones completing those passes on time, he's elite at that. Playing on time, playing within a structure, getting the ball out on time to the right target. That's what Beck does. Point guard, game manager. If you want to look at J.J. McCarthy, that's kind of it right there. Probably not as good an athlete as J.J. was, but it's very Jared Goff-like. Maybe that's my comp. We'll get into my NFL comp in a second. Prototypical NFL QB size. He is bigger than he gets credit for. He is bigger than people realize. He is the exact same size as Fernando Mendoza, but you probably wouldn't ever realize that because the media will never tell you that because the media doesn't like Carson Beck like they do Fernando Mendoza. So I just think if another random named quarterback was 6'5", 230, we would be salivating over them. But since it's Carson Beck, for some reason that doesn't mean anything, I guess. My last strength, he has a serial killer mentality on the field. And some might see that as a bad thing. In this context of sports, that's a good thing. He has the killer instinct that you want. This guy, what I mean by a serial killer mentality is he doesn't feel anything out there. He doesn't get rattled. He doesn't get nervous. He doesn't feel anything. He is an assassin, and he's kind of unkillable. We talked about that going back to the playoff run. Teams could not put them away. They could not put him away. Indiana almost didn't even put him away. They were 40 yards away from losing that game. Obviously, we'll talk about the interception, but I think there is something to be said with quarterbacks like that who don't lose football games. Joe Burrow has that. Jalen Hurts has that. Like, assassins, man. These guys are kind of like interesting characters that you don't want to mess with because if you rile them up, they will pick you apart and they will beat you. That's what I see with Beck. He doesn't get rattled. There's never been a bright lights moment. He's 37-6 in his career as a starter. I don't care what anyone tells me about him having good players around him at Georgia. I know those Georgia teams were stacked. I know this Miami team was stacked. He still did not lose, he still was the one completing the throws. So we'll just say that. Weaknesses. Arm strength looks shot post-UCL surgery. So that's no secret. I won't try to hide that. The arm strength is not what it was, and that's probably going to be the reason he falls in the draft and doesn't get drafted as high as I think he should because, he doesn't have much zip on the ball as he once had. He's accurate, but the arm strength is not. He cannot throw it as far as some of the other guys. He can still easily rip a 55, 60-yarder. He had some balls in the championship game. That one to Keelan Marin when he dropped it. I think that was an easy 50-yard chuck that he just kind of flicked the wrist. So I am curious to see if any arm strength can come back with Beck. I know they say maybe 2 years removed from a UCL surgery, the arm strength can sort of get stronger a little bit, come back a little bit. But stay tuned on that. I understand if that scares teams away because he maybe can't make all the throws like some quarterbacks can in this class. Definitely a problem. Another weakness, he is choked in some big moments. So he did throw the game-sealing interception for for Indiana to win the championship this year, which felt like everybody knew that interception was coming. He's had some notable interceptions in his career. Obviously, the 3-interception game against Alabama. I think he had another 3-interception game against Texas, I want to say, back when he was at Georgia. So we know those moments are there. He's had some big collapses in big games, and you can't put that past him, but he's also had some big moments in big games. And I think it seems like we only talk about the negative moments for Beck because obviously just this is the final weakness. Because of the person he is and the character he is, with some minor off-field character questions, minor, very minor. Again, he's not a bad guy. Like I don't think doing anything bad off the field. I've just heard he's a tool. I've just heard people don't like him. So we'll see what happens there. But I just think if that's your reason to not draft him, I think that's kind of a silly reason. All right. My NFL projection and outlook for Carson Beck, my comp is Jared Goff. I think he's kind of Jared Goff, honestly. I think Goff has a better arm. I think Goff is definitely better. I know Goff was a 1-1. Goff was the number 1 pick coming out of college. But don't let anyone forget, Carson Beck was projected as a 1-1 at one point in his career. Going into his last season at Georgia in 2024, this guy was the projected number 1 overall pick. And then obviously didn't have the same season and had the UCL surgery and then transferred. So we know the fallout that happened at Georgia, but I don't think, like, this guy was once a big-time recruit who had the pedigree and was supposed to be a top quarterback in the league. So that's why I'm kind of like, maybe there's still something there. I have a 3rd-round grade on him. I would take him on day 2. I keep saying this. If your plan is to take Ty Simpson in the 1st, I would just wait till Carson Beck in the 3rd. That's what I would do. I think you're getting the similar style, similar type level of quarterbacks, and I think the value's better in the 3rd there. So my team fits for him are the Lions and Steelers. Honestly, like any team that has a good starter, and just kind of needs a backup, because my thing with Beck is, here's my prediction. I keep saying Carson Beck is the type of guy who doesn't go away. He's the type of sports character who doesn't just go away, meaning us as fans, we're gonna be dealing with him for like another decade, I think. Because I think he is going to find his way onto a really good team. And he's the type of quarterback that just kind of exists in the background there for a little bit. And then all of a sudden, the starter goes down, gets hurt. Oh, Beck checks in. Oh, Beck comes in. Oh, wow, commands the offense really well. Oh, wow, did we just win 6 straight games as a team with Carson Beck as our quarterback? Did he just elevate? Wow, is he just our starter now? Like, that's what I see with Carson Beck. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if he had like a Dak Prescott type of career arc. And I'm not comping him to Dak Prescott. Dak is physically gifted, stylistically so much better than Carson Beck. That's not the comp. It's the production arc. It's the career arc. It's the, like, going to a team that already has, a Tony Romo quarterback in the 4th round, and then you just end up being the starter due to injury, and you end up being really good because you've played a lot of football and you've won a lot of games like Dak Prescott did at Mississippi State. So that's my 2 cents on Carson Beck. Again, I know I'm probably the highest guy on Carson Beck compared to anyone talking the draft right now, but I just think people are ignoring the literal factual results on the field because they just don't like the guy. So